Hey, welcome to our explainer. Today, we're diving into something that has guided emperors, kicked off huge scientific debates, and yeah, probably lives on your smartphone, astrology. So let's get into why this ancient practice still fascinates us so much.
It's a question that gets at something really deep inside all of us, doesn't it? Are we in control, or is there some kind of grand design out there? For thousands of years, people have looked up at the night sky just searching for answers, wondering if that cosmic dance up there holds any secrets about our lives down here.
So, what are we actually talking about here? Well, at its core, astrology is all about looking at the positions of planets and stars to figure out things about us. But you can see the main problem right away. On the one hand, it's an ancient, respected tradition. On the other, it's been labeled as pseudoscience since the Enlightenment. And that's the fascinating conflict we're going to dig into.
To really get why astrology still has such a hold on us, we have to go back in time. And I mean way back. Because this is not some new trend. For most of human history, astrology wasn't just a quirky belief. It was a respected science, studied by some of the greatest minds around.
The story of astrology is really a story of cultures bumping into each other and sharing ideas. It all started way back in Mesopotamia, where the movement of the stars was literally seen as messages from the gods. Then, Alexander the Great comes along, and his conquests blend these Babylonian ideas with Egyptian traditions, creating the horoscopic astrology we'd recognize today. And get this, during the Middle Ages in Europe, it was Islamic scholars who kept all this knowledge alive, refining it and eventually reintroducing it to Europe right before the Renaissance, where it just exploded.
And this wasn't some fringe idea, This was the intellectual mainstream. Thinkers like Thomas Aquinas basically summed up how everyone felt. The perfect, unchanging heavens were in charge of our messy, flawed lives on Earth. This idea was so powerful that even the guys who invented modern astronomy, we're talking Kepler, Galileo, they were also practicing astrologers. It shaped everything from medicine to politics.
But then, a huge shift in thinking started to shake the very foundations of this worldview. A massive divide was coming, and it would split the study of the stars into two completely different fields, forever.
The rise of this scientific revolution was a total game-changer. Suddenly you have concepts like heliocentrism, the idea that the Earth actually goes around the sun, and Newton's laws of gravity. These gave people a whole new way to understand the universe. It was a universe that worked like a machine, governed by physical laws, not mysterious influences. And the result of all this was a permanent split. By the 1600s, the words astronomy and astrology just weren't interchangeable anymore. Astronomy became the science of what celestial objects are, their physics, their chemistry. Astrology, on the other hand, kept exploring what they mean. And from that point on, they went down two very, very different roads.
So that brings us right into the heart of the modern debate. Once astrology was no longer seen as a science by the academic world, a whole new wave of criticism started to build.
Why exactly does the scientific community pretty much reject astrology's claims out of hand? Well, let's break down the main arguments.
Okay, so the scientific case against astrology really stands on three big pillars. First, there's what's called the falsifiability problem. The philosopher Karl Popper pointed out that astrological predictions are often so vague you can't ever prove them wrong, which is a big red flag for a pseudoscience. Second, there's no known mechanism. I mean, what physical force, gravity, electromagnetism, could possibly explain how a planet millions of miles away could affect your personality? And finally, and this is a big one, whenever it's been put to the test in strict double-blind studies, like a famous one in the journal Nature back in '85, astrology has never performed better than just random chance.
But here's what's really wild. These arguments aren't new at all. Over 2,000 years ago, the Roman philosopher Cicero was basically saying the same thing. He argued that astrology completely ignores all the obvious stuff that influences our lives, like our genes or our upbringing. And he also brought up the famous twins objection, a question that's still a huge challenge today. If astrology is real, how can twins born just moments apart under the exact same stars go on to live totally different lives?
Now, in response to all this scientific criticism, a lot of modern astrology fans have sort of reframed what it's all about. Many will tell you they don't see it as a hard science. Instead, they see it more as a symbolic language for understanding yourself, or maybe an art form, or a tool for divination. For them, it's not about predicting the future. It's about creating meaning.
So, despite losing its academic street cred centuries ago, astrology is, believe it or not, more popular today than maybe ever before. How in the world did this ancient practice make such a huge comeback in the modern world?
Astrology's big revival really took off in the 1960s. It tapped right into that counterculture vibe that was questioning all the old institutions. As people started looking for meaning outside of traditional religion or a purely materialistic view of science, astrology, along with things like New Age spirituality, offered a really compelling alternative.
And I am not exaggerating about its popularity. Look at this recent data. Over a quarter of American adults say they believe in astrology. That's tens of millions of people. It just shows you what a powerful cultural force it still is.
And this belief isn't just on the fringes. It has reached the absolute highest levels of power. It came out years ago, and it shocked everyone, that First Lady Nancy Reagan secretly had an astrologer who helped schedule President Reagan's most important events. We're talking press conferences, international summits, all timed according to the stars.
These beliefs can have massive, and I mean massive, real-world effects. So in Japan, the year 1966 was a fire horse year, which in their tradition is considered extremely unlucky for girls to be born in. The result? The country's birth rate dropped by over 25% that year. People actively avoided having kids under that sign.
And if you want to see where astrology is at today, all you have to do is follow the money. In just the last few years, horoscope and astrology apps have become big business, pulling in millions and millions of dollars in funding from Silicon Valley venture capitalists. The stars have officially gone digital.
And that leaves us with this incredible paradox, right? Science gives us a universe of cold, hard facts, but astrology offers a cosmos that's filled with stories and meaning. The real question isn't just whether the stars influence us. It's why, in our modern scientific age, so many of us still feel this pull to look up at them for answers about ourselves. Maybe, in the end, our obsession with the stars says less about the universe and a whole lot more about us.